Historians and ethnographers claim that taboos against incest, or sexual relations with relatives, emerged as early as in the early Mesolithic period. It is known to us that at that time the glacier was retreating, and most people were able to settle in such a way as not to fall into icebacks or territorial isolation. The king could claim the queen from a distance. Finally, the elders themselves of the colony warned that if this is not done, the not-so-pleasant-looking and not fully healthy person will be born. But freaks were born even many thousands of years later. Many humans maintained the isolation of their religion and divine beings, known only to a pretty small circle of people within this group. Among the blue bloods, this was common and so on, but there were also men who were looking for brides in a closely related environment, simply abstaining of communication with others. We think it's time to introduce to you the main surname of this episode. Let's talk about the Whitaker family, who have become the touchstone of such matters. Welcome to Flip Side of History. Let's continue. People who exist even in our 21st century. The Whitaker family is an American bloodline living isolated in the most idyllic part of Appalachia. From 2004 till 2020, the American documentary filmmaker Mark Lyda diarized information about them. We are talking about the population of the ancestral nest, a farm where exclusively close relatives of different generations live alongside with each other, located in Raleigh County, which is in West Virginia. In this town, which we have touched upon, the building density is only 20 private buildings per square kilometer. Literally all townspeople are in the status of below the poverty line by American standards. And on the peaks of the Appalachian Mountains themselves, the density is even much lower. We are talking about the village of Odd. The core center of Odd is only a dozen buildings along the Tommy Creek, and the rest of the houses and the post office are arranged along the nearest roads, which means sometimes several kilometers from the historical core of the village itself. Let us tell you about the biography of the lineage. In Odd, everyone is related in one way or another to each other. Not in terms of wife or husband if you understood it that way, but in terms of close family ties. When Lyda arrived, the population was 799 Americans, most of whom were genetically explained in the way we described. And a certain part of this population is the Whitakers. Obviously, since the population is that huge, it didn't happen instantly or nearly instantly. It took many generations of blood ties. The process of active incest in the Whitaker dynasty began at the very beginning of the 1900s. It began with the still conventional reproductive activity of twin brothers. One was named Henry, and the other was named John. Henry had 6 children with a woman from another family, and John had 9 children with, in this case, outsider. And then this family decided to make things right, according to them, with their own gene pool. One of John's daughters and one of Henry's sons built a family, like a cousin. The risk of anomalies in the sphere of offspring is supposed to be low, but still something clearly went wrong. For one example, since 1937, the couple has given birth to 15 children, half of whom had congenital diseases, that is, genetic ones. In addition, their by then healthy children, having already started the most merciless version of incest, which is closely related, eventually gave birth to their own, as you guessed, much more distressing in terms of diseases and appearance, offspring. The members of already these descendants no longer engage in direct incest. These are, in basis, the same Whitakers with whom Lyda in fact communicated. In 2020, Mark Lyda learned that one of the members he basically interviewed not long ago, Freddie, had already died of a heart attack. Wait, what about these days, 2023? Despite the fact that they sadly look like the living satirical pictures, the members of this cell of society are quite nice people. In a good sense, of course, it is a classic agrarian society of average Americans, simple and accommodating. Judging by words of the photographer himself, he was shocked just at first. After all, every stranger is stressful for them, since it's inconvenient for both sides. As it turned out, there were already those who persecuted them based on hatred and other reasons. The Whitakers take good care of each other, and in general, their behavior is pretty common for this corner of the United States. They hunt deer, these people gather fruits and berries, there are many berries in the forest, and sometimes, if it's possible, help other people of the place named Odd. Who was born from whom within the clan? The author of the gathered information met the Whitaker twins. One is called Betty, another is Lorraine, and the third is Ray. They also have a brother, Freddie, and Timmy, a cousin. Of these people, only the last one obtained a high school diploma. Thus, he's a source of information. Siblings simply do not have the opportunity to acquire knowledge even for a while due to physical health problems as well as mental problems. And believe it or not, if they had appeared in this school where Timmy was studying, the other students would have avoided them within a mile of their sight, which would bring just traumatic experiences. Ray is able to, we can say, communicate to others from this family with a specific bark. Which, unexpectedly enough, all the Whitakers understand. Doctors, however, do remember the fruits of incest. They visit them time to time. These people are undergoing examinations on a regular basis, but they do it very reluctantly. So based on this, we can say that the entire list of abnormalities among family members has not yet been revealed. Why are adults like this, who are indeed mature, are different in every way in life? The answer is self-evident, because their parents are couples of fathers and daughters, brothers and sisters, sons and mothers, grandmothers and grandsons, and alike. As we explained earlier, incest within this conglomerate started at the beginning of the 20th century, over 100 years ago. Over this period of inbreeding, the family has collected all imaginable genetic diseases. Whitakers do maintain remoteness but not cleanliness or essential hygiene. In the town closest to Odd, the explorer-traveler was warned that strangers were not liked in the place where he went. He was told that anything can happen to him on Tommy's Creek. And well, everything was confirmed. The first individual he met on the road was an aggressive guy with a shotgun who advised the publicist to get out of here without questions asked. The Whitakers don't want West Virginia tour operators to put the location on their map and bring tourists in this place. Despite these warnings in the town of Odd itself, the author of the notes, videos, and photos was told that the Whitakers had been here for a long time. It took Mark a long time to prove that he was not writing information for internet entertainment purposes, but instead to write an educational book. But even after that, half of the inhabitants of the Whitaker farm were literally yelling and even barking at Lyda. Some of them kicked junk fiercely. Speaking of garbage, it's everywhere, whether outside of homes or inside, everywhere. As for the buildings and the main ancestral house, it is probably worth blowing and every common to them object will fall. Something similar barely can be seen in Europe or North America, but can be seen on a massive scale in Bangladesh, some slums in India or South Africa. The proverb, "your own brother," is unwelcoming. Why did the descendants of John and Henry Whitaker stop going to outside communities in search of brides or grooms? Didn't their children even imagine that in the case of the offspring of twins, even a cross-cousin marriage would not lead to something good? Or did they have no idea, or they lacked elementary education in the fields of marriage or coitus? It's not only about illiteracy, but mostly about the absence of norms within society, morals, and most importantly, a healthy psyche. It's incredibly sad reality, but they are not taught how to be themselves and how to define basic for human beings things. This community has developed its own customs, including in terms of expressing their needs or emotions. So no one even knows what it means to be careful or adequate as we know it. It is not for nothing that they perfectly understand the barking of one of their relatives, but do not understand the meaning of many familiar words of, let alone, English language. We know, for instance, English language, or some of you maybe know Spanish, French, or Hindi. But what if you will be tasked to communicate with someone who does not speak your language, or even a language from another family of languages, but makes alien sounds, where there is no translation of words or phrases which we know? This is the case here. These people lived in complete remoteness for over 100 years. That is, over time, the foreigners to them began to frighten Whitakers with their unusual behavior. This clan chose to communicate only within itself, plus with the other inhabitants of Odd. And communication within oneself implies reproduction only by one's own efforts on their own. Let's talk about this. Where else on Earth is inbreeding practiced? This is the issue of any area from the list of the most inaccessible. We are talking more often about the highlands and islands, where a cousin will be able to steal a bride in a village located kilometers away at best. But exemplars of extremely traditional societies do not despise the light form of incest, cross-cousin marriages, either. As a rule, we are talking about the countries on the more economically poor spectrum and the landscapes occupied by people who consciously decided to preserve the very old way of how things should be. In the latter case, the matter is a little different. Researchers of such societies claim that bride kidnapping often occurs against the will of her parents, since people even in a nearby village may believe in another god or belong to a different caste. The mixing of such families is simply unacceptable. The belief system plays a crucial role here, but bride stealing was the beginning of armed conflicts. It was banned. Alright, let's get back to Whitaker family. Some of the Whitaker clan have recently given birth to new children, who appear to be quite healthy on the outside. On the one hand, genetic abnormalities may well manifest themselves in them later. On the other hand, they stand their ground. The collective of families firmly hopes for the best. The worst part is, this dynasty is not the only one of the incestuous beings. It's hard to imagine the broken lives from the very beginning, from their birth. Thank you for watching our episode. We hope you found out new information for you today, and you want to know more stories, people, societies, or just hidden projects in our human history. In case you do not hesitate to subscribe and leave a like. And for now, see you later on Flip Side of History.